Hi, I'm Alice, owner of Fabric Ninja. Are you ready for another video? Today we're going to work on corner drool pads. Drool pads are also called suck pads. I call them Ninja droolers, but they're strap protectors for your baby carrier. Let's get started. These are all the pieces you need to make a set of corner suck pads. We have up here the outside, we'll call it fashion fabric. This is the lining, it's the pink. The reversible, so you can really use either side out. And then we have the absorbent material. This is Zorb. I love Zorb. I need a t-shirt or a bumper sticker that says that. It's pretty lightweight. It's about the thickness of 2 layers of flannel. This stuff is amazing. It holds 10 times its weight in water, and it's manufactured by Wazoodle. I try to use it in the middle of all things that acquire drool, and it's also wonderful for cloth diapers or menstrual pads. It's just amazing. This is the lining layer. The first thing I'm going to do is actually mark where my snaps are going to go. I have these really fancy templates that I had made, but that's because I make a ton of these. And these have little holes in them that I just mark where all of my snaps are going to go. Would help if I had it lined up right. There we go. And then I'm going to do it on the other side over here as well. Now when I'm ready to put my snaps on, I don't have to do any measuring because my marks are already there. Once I have those markings, it's time to layer it up. I just flip this over onto there, flip this over onto here, and this is one ready to sew. I'm going to do the exact same thing to every other layer. You now have 6 piles ready to sew. 2 lining, 2 fashion fabric, and 2 absorbent material. I have all 6 layers of my suck pads ready to sew. Here I am at my sewing machine. I have it lined up at the 1 centimeter mark. 1 centimeter is the same as 3/8. If you're using the pattern at home, you can use the 1 centimeter for use the 1 centimeter pattern and then line it up with your 3/8 inch mark on your machine. I have a German machine called a Pfaff, and everything is in centimeters. One of the many reasons that I include a 1 centimeter pattern, because it's the one I use. I have a straight stitch foot here. It has a small hole which the needle goes through. A zigzag foot has a wide hole. It's always best to use a straight stitch foot when you are doing straight stitch. The larger hole in a zigzag foot can cause the fabric to pull up through it, so this will give you the best results you can have. My machine automatically sets its stitch to 2.5 inches long, and it's a stitch I like. So here we go. Starting off, I'm going to hit the tie off button on my machine, but you can just do a little back stitch, and here we go. Curves are something that people always wonder, how do you do it? You just kind of hold it and work with the machine. Remember, you're not pushing or pulling on the machine, and the only place that it matters that it lines up is right in line with the needle. So this red mark here is directly in line with the needle. So right when it's here is when I want it to line up. Nowhere else matters. So there we go at the end. Do a little back stitch, pull it out, start the next side. Okay, now all of my 6 layers are sewn together. It's time to notch the corners or clip the corners and iron. All your layers are sewn, and now it's time to clip the curves and remove the absorbent material from the seam allowance. We're going to simply cut right outside of the seam line to take all of the absorbent material, seam allowance, away. Open it up. If you manage to get a little too close and you have a hole here, you don't have to worry about it, but you can lay this flat in your sewing machine and do a zigzag across the hole, but it doesn't really matter in the end. On each piece of the suck pads, all 4 that are left, the 2 inside and 2 outside, you need to clip these curves right here and right here. This is because they are concave curves, they curve in. If they were a convex curve, meaning they curved outward, you would put notches in it. We'll be doing notches on the bottom here after we sew the layers together. But we need to do clips in these curves. You just clip the seam allowance, don't go through the stitching. You need to clip to about right there. I'm also going to do it on this side. Most important part is right here where it actually curves. That's because when you flip it right side out, those seam allowances need to be able to flare out to get an excellent fit. Now I'm going to do it on the rest of them and we'll be ready to layer everything up. If you don't want to clip your corners, you do have one other option, which is to pink them. Pinking shears are zigzag scissors, and you can simply just cut relatively close to the curve and back up. You really need to use pinking shears here to get this close, because the pinking shears are going to keep it from raveling. These Ninja Jewelers are going to have something special, a ruffle. A ruffle is a great way to protect more of your carrier, particularly if you are using straight suck pads. The ruffle will cover that corner that the corner pad is designed to actually cover. This is a 4-inch wide strip, and it is as long as my fabric is wide. So I cut it the whole width of my fabric. And these are going to have something even more special. A ribbon. It's going to be crazy awesome. Let me show you how. So I'm going to iron it in half like that. Your ruffle strip has now been ironed in half and is 2 inches wide. Taking another 1/2 inch off the top where the seam will be, it's 1.5 inches wide ruffle when we're done. A pretty good width. I'm going to apply the ribbon to my fabric about 1/4 inch down from the top. I could put it all the way up at the top, but that wouldn't leave a lot of ribbon showing. So I'm going to sew it directly onto my ruffle band about 1/4 inch down from the top. So when I ruffle it together, I won't be losing too much ribbon. This is a ruffler foot, which is what I'm going to use to make the ruffles for the suck pads. It looks crazy, but it's really pretty simple. So let me lay out how it works. First, when it goes in the machine, this is the way you're going to be looking at it. So your needle is going down through that hole. This is attached to the shank of your sewing machine. And the needle bar, or that little piece that sticks out from the needle where the screw is that you turn or unscrew to get the needle out, this goes around the needle bar. So when the needle bar goes up, you hear that click, and that pushes in. And the needle bar goes down, you hear another click. And what the clicks are is it's counting. And it's counting because you can set it to how often it is going to put a pleat in. Every 1, every 6, every 12. And the star, I think, means that it's off right now. I have to look that up. So what happens is your fabric is in between here. And when it goes up, it pushes the fabric. I have the ruffler foot installed. Before we use it on our real fabric, I'm going to run a scrap piece of fabric through so you can see a little bit better how it works. Also, I always recommend running a scrap through just to make sure everything is working right. I have it set on 6, and that means every 6 stitches it's going to take a pleat. You might be tempted to put it on 1, but it gets really, really thick because all those ruffles stack up on top of each other and make it difficult to sew. Unless you are using thin fabric, I would not suggest putting it on 1. Leave it on 6. The other thing I do is I elongate my stitch slightly. I normally have my stitch on 2.5, and so I have my stitch on 3 right now. The fabric slides right in there. It's underneath the teeth, the 2 pushers. And you can use these other pieces to align ribbon or all sorts of things. Put your presser foot down. It is so easy to forget to put your presser foot down when you are using this foot because there's so much going on that you just forget. And it's not going to work without the presser foot down. Okay. Press your foot up. Pull it off. Then I can look at it and say, I mean, it did a ruffle every 6 stitches, but it's not really what I want. I want a ruffle that is either deeper, which means the teeth push it farther, or I want ones that are closer together. Over on the other side, there is this adjustment, which actually makes this individual pleats deeper, and you can crank that up and move it, crank it open and move it up and down to tighten it. My children like playing with my ruffler foot. They think it's their own personal sewing machine, so unfortunately mine is not aligned the way I want it to. Now, instead of messing with this piece, which I don't think they undid, I'm going to move my stitch length back down to 2.5, and I am ready to sew my real ruffle. Here's my ruffle. I'm going to line it right up in here. I'm going to try to keep my stitching a consistent width from the edge. I could basically pick anywhere on here to try to keep it consistent. Just make sure both of those teeth are on your fabric. I also like to check to make sure my needle is tight. For some reason, ruffler foots tend to cause people's needles to become loose. So it's just a good idea to give it a little touch to make sure your needle's not going to pop out. Let's go. Oh, I'm not going anywhere yet. Let's move the fabric forward so that everything can actually grab. And now I have these beautiful ruffles. Now we're going to layer them up. I start with my absorbent layer first, and then I check and make sure I pick the right side. I already checked before. I got it out here. You put that on top so that your lining is going to go right side up. And let me just kind of rough these out for you so you can understand them. And then your fashion fabric is going to go right side down on top of that. But because this suck pad has ruffles, they are going to go on at this stage. So this ruffles, which you will see along the bottom here, actually go like that. So they are inside the suck pad when you are sewing it. In this case, I want the blue part to show when I have this fabric. So the blue part's actually going to be up when I pin this all along the edge. So when it flips down, it'll be the dark pink that shows with the Greek key. You may have heard, I hate pinning. And so I used my sewing machine to baste the ruffle on. Your sewing machine has a basting stitch. It's the same as a straight stitch, it's just longer, and it's designed to do just this. There's no need to put a million pins in. Use your sewing machine. The part that I am going to pin is the very ends. Everyone has a different opinion on how to do the ends. In this case, I'm just going to double roll the ends, and then I'm going to pin it right down here in place. Later I will do a little bit of top stitching or hand stitching to get that all nice and neat. So when this is downward, it'll just be a straight line. I'm going to go ahead and pin all of that and then get the next one ready for you. I have attached my ruffles to the lining that is already layered with the absorbent material, and now it's time to add the fashion fabric on top. You can see here that those ruffles are in fact hidden right between those layers, so I just have my last one to pop on top. And I definitely suggest going ahead and lining up those seams right there and sticking a pin and a pin on that seam, and then going down to the bottom and finding the seam and matching that up right there. It's a little bit harder with the ruffle because the ruffle's hiding it. Put a pin in all of those seams, and then when you're sewing, it will keep everything laying nice and smooth. Time to sew all the layers of the suck pad together. I have my straight stitch foot on again. I have a 2.5 inch stitch length, and I'm lining everything up to my 1 centimeter mark. This is the top of the suck pad. I'm doing that first because it's nice and straight and pinned already. You may have noticed when you were pinning things that your absorbent material is somehow larger than it was when you were originally cutting it. It's pretty common with absorbent material that it stretches a little. What you do is you just line up the seams and let everything work its way out. It probably won't be an issue at all. Your feed dogs on the bottom, which are the part that actually move your fabric along, are going to gather the bottom ever so slightly, and any of that extra in your absorbent layer will probably just go away. If you end up having a bump before we turn them right side out, you can just clip that bump away. It won't affect anything in the end. One technique that you may have seen me do before is I actually flip these down, or flip my seam allowances down when I sew the next direction. this helps me get a really crisp corner as I'm going. When you come down near where the ruffle is, what you're going to do is lift up and pull that ruffle out of the way. You do not want to sew across it. I don't really love pinning, but the bottom of curved suck pads is a place to do it. There's so many layers going on here, particularly because I also have ruffles. If it didn't have ruffles, you can probably get away with not pinning it. But with the ruffles, you need pins, or you're going to spend more time fighting with it than you really need to. And the more time you fight with it, you're pulling on this layer, and you end up making it longer because it is a bias edge, meaning it's not cut on the straight of grain. So let's get this sewn and get ready to flip it right side out. I am sewing across to my pins here. My pins are perpendicular to the edge of my fabric. This means that when I sew across them, I have one chance to hit them. Because they are perpendicular to the edge of my fabric, I only have one chance. If they were parallel, like this pin is parallel, if they were like this, I would have a gazillion chances to hit this pin as I was sewing over it. So if you are sewing over a pin, make sure the pin is perpendicular to the edge of your fabric. This is for safety. Not only for your safety, the safety of your machine. A little back stitch, pop it up, leave myself an opening, and I have my tag right inside. Try to get this last corner flipped over. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does. There we go. Now it's time to prep them for flipping. Now, wouldn't it be great if I could just take my sewn suck pad and start to flip it? But there's work to do beforehand. In fact, most sewing has to do with the work not at the sewing machine. So this one is straight off the sewing machine, and this I've done some work to. Let's flip them over. It'll be easier to see the differences. The first thing is that we need to trim our absorbent material out of the seam allowances. So we're going to actually slide a pair of scissors right along there. Of course, this is really complicated for me to do on screen, but we're going to actually trim all of that seam allowance away. So you'll have your fabric, and then the absorbent material will be super close to that seam line. The next thing we have to do is cut notches in the bottom edge. Those are notches, or V's. They're not the same as the clips that we did on the corners here. You do clips on concave curves and notches on convex curves. This curves outwards, so it needs notches. These are very important on a suck pad when it has a ruffle. There's so much bulk down here, you really need to do a bunch of notches. On a suck pad that doesn't have that, you can just do a few. You don't have to go crazy, but it will lay so much smoother if you take time to do those notches. And now it's time to turn our suck pad right side out. So we have an opening right here. I'm going to stick my hands inside. I'm going to go to the farthest corner, and I've got my thumb in it. I'm going to wrap this corner around here, and then I'm going to push so that I've popped that corner inside. Go down to my next one. Fold that over, hold it, and pop it inside. And the last corner here, there's two corners, but one of them normally gets left out of this process just because of the bulk. Okay, so now I've gotten 3 of them done. I go and I reach for my farthest corner and I start pushing it out of the hole. If you find any issues, like the fact that I caught my ribbon, or my ruffle, in the seam here, now is the time to fix it. So I'm going to pop actually this segment right back through the hole and fix this little issue, and then get on to the next one. We are nearly done with our suck pads. Here you can see the 2 different sides of these pads with a ruffle and our double ruffle here, the top part made out of ribbon. The last thing we need to do is close the hole that we turned everything through. So you turn this over, you look for the hole. You can see it's right here. I have put a piece of Easy Steam 2 right there. It's the shiny bit you see. This is one of my favorite products. Basically, it's just going to glue the 2 edges together so that when we top stitch, nothing moves. You can just pin. That's also an option. I just really like this. So I've pulled off the paper and now it's sticky. So it's all stuck together now. I'm going to go iron that so it stays really well. The great thing about the Easy Steam 2 is that it stays there. I could actually not top stitch, and after I iron, that'll stay closed. Another product called a Wonder Tape basically works the same way, but it washes out. This means I know that this is very secure. I'm going to iron that, and then it's time for top stitching. Top stitching is very boring to watch, so I'm just going to let you know that we're going to sew close to the edge all the way around, and we're going to do it on the ruffle edge too. When you're doing the ruffle edge, just make sure you give it a little bitty tug as you go, because you want to make sure there is no little pocket of fabric in there. So you just want to make sure everything stays super smooth as you go. Add your snaps to the back if you're using snaps, or if you're using a buttonhole, put buttons on one side and buttonholes on the other. They're all done and ready to be used on your carrier. Thank you so much for sewing with the Fabric Ninja. I look forward to seeing your creations.